programme that if he became Prime Minister, he would make spiking a standalone criminal offence to send a clear message to perpetrators and to empower victims to report it.
Well, today the Prime Minister joins us to confirm that this will go ahead as part of his commitment to halve violence against women and girls. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Very nice to see you.
It's very good to see you, and it is really important because it was on this programme, as you rightly say, 18 months ago, that I said if we were privileged to win the election, we would make spiking a criminal offence. And so to be able to announce today that we're going to do so back on this programme, I think just completes on that. Having said we would do it, it is important to come back and say, now we're doing it. And this obviously affects many, many people.
Well, 700 incidents were reported last year. So how is this really going to help people?
Well, the number of reported incidents is way below the number of cases. Because many people don't want to come forward, they feel embarrassed. Obviously, spiking is a way of ensuring that the perpetrator might go on to commit sexual offences. And, you know, very many people don't want to come forward to say what has happened to them. That's part of why we want to make it a specific offence, part of why we want to raise awareness about it and put the support mechanisms in place. So this is, you know, it's been welcomed by victims and victims' groups. It's what they were calling for. But by making it a specific offence, it means we're clearly identifying what it is. We're making it easier to have a public campaign around it, easier for our police and for courts. But also, there's this central question of people are caught with kits for spiking, and up until now it's been quite hard to prosecute them. It's the drugs they're putting into the drinks that people are taking. And as I say, this is an offence which is very often linked to going on to further sexual offence.
Which is understandable.
Which is, you know, we all know that is massively underreported, hugely impactful. I've been saying very clearly that one of the missions of this government is to halve violence against women and girls, which is a really hard thing to do, I completely accept. But I'm determined that we're going to drive down and push down all this. This is one step. There are many others that we will be taking, but it's an important one today.
Well, because there's also been a report where there's been a 50% increase against women on travelling on public transport or on trains. This is something that definitely needs to be looked into.
Yeah, this is really... And I had a big roundtable this morning of all the relevant people, one of which was the Transport Police. And 61016, remember...
This is the text message, right?
Text message. This was launched some years ago. But it's really important for anybody watching this. This is a text that if you're on a train and you are being harassed or subjected to attention that you don't want, particularly sexual attention, you can text this number. It is confidential. It will go through to the police. And we were talking this morning about examples where it has happened and the police have been able to meet the train and deal with the incident. So for anybody watching, it's a really important text message or number to remember, just quietly doing that text, and to remember if you're not the victim but you see something happening to somebody else, then you too can use it to make sure that message gets out there.
That number, they play it when you're on a train. You hear that number, they do the announcement, see it, say it, sort it, I think is the motto they do. But then you need a policeman to be there. So you're saying a policeman might meet the train. I text it at one station. There's no way that's going to get a policeman on at the next station. Shouldn't there be more policemen on the trains and in the vicinity of train stations?
Well, the way it works is it goes through to a sort of central holding place where they collate all the information and then are able to send out to the local force. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't want to say that each and every time it's used there will be some, but there are examples where it's been very, very effective.
Do you have any?
Sorry?
Do you have any examples where it's been really effective?
Well, the one we were talking through this morning was a young woman who was, you know, very, very upset by what was happening on a train. And that's the example where she was able to use it, went into the Central Coordination Centre, and they did get a police officer it was the end station rather than the next station, to be fair, but that's where she was getting off and where the perpetrator was getting off. It's an example of how it did work. And I think just knowing that it's available is hugely important for anybody travelling on the trains or elsewhere, but particularly on the trains, it can be really effective.
OK, 5 months since you took office, you know, went into Downing Street. Has it been 5 months that you expected it to be? Easier, harder?
Oh, it's hard. I mean, governing is hard, and we inherited a lot of problems, an economy that was broken, NHS on its knees, and we've had to pick that up and deal with it. And I took the decision that we would take the hard decisions first. I think anybody who's turned around, I don't know, an organisation or a business will tell you, and they're right, if you're really going to turn something around, you have to do the hard yards up front. Don't look at a tough decision and then leave it for a year or two. So we're doing the tough stuff. But in the budget, which was probably the toughest, I'm really pleased that we were able to put so much money into the National Health Service, so much money into education so every child can go as far as their talent will take them, and making sure that we're ensuring that people are better off, that their pay slip is protected. Tough things to do when the economy was as badly damaged as it was, but I think anybody watching this who uses the NHS will know we absolutely had to make that a priority. So tough but fair decisions. But look, I wouldn't swap a single day in opposition for a day in power. It's much better to be in power to do things rather than the frustration, as I found it, in opposition for all of those long years where we were just able to say what we would do, like making an offence.
Yes, which is much easier than actually being in there.
So last time I sat on, 18 months ago, I said this is what we would do. So good to be able to come back and say, this is what I am doing.
What's interesting is you say tough but fair. That's what you just said. But then there are pensioners who wouldn't say it was fair. There are farmers who wouldn't say it was fair. There are parents of private school children that wouldn't say it was fair either.
Small businessmen who wouldn't. I spoke to a friend this morning. He employs quite a few people on minimum wage. He's saying he might have to shut his business down because his national insurance now will be so high that he's going to have to shut the business down. That means people are going to lose jobs. How do you balance this? You know, it feels like you still compete to pay Paul.
Tough but fair.
You've got to look. You have to make decisions. At the end of the day, we inherited a broken economy. £22 billion was unaccounted for on the books, so we had to fill that black hole. At the same time, I knew we had to put money into the health service, we had to put money into our schools, and so you have to make choices. You can't do both. You can't say, I want to fix the NHS, and we won't raise a single penny of tax. Those are the things that were said for many years. They're not true, and I think they got us into the problem. So I'm not pretending for anybody impacted that things aren't tough. I don't think that's fair or right, whoever is impacted. But political choices are about saying, I do think that just at the moment we've got to pick the NHS up. We've got to get those waiting lists down. We've got to make that a priority. If you're going to do that, you have to take tough decisions. As long as they're tough and fair, I think people do understand that. But pretending that you can fix all the problems but not raise a penny in tax or anything else, that's a fiction. And I think most people do understand that.
Absolutely. But are you now feeling the pressure? Because I think there's a petition that's currently
Your approval
online
ratings have dropped.
1.9 people who want the election to go again.
It's now over 2 million now? It's now just over 2 million.
Do you feel the pressure?
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election. I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There will be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So, look, what I focus is the decisions that I have to make every day.
But
it's a bit like opposition.
Surely you want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think he's the man for the job, he's doing what he needs to do. Your approval rating is lower than Nigel Farage's right now, which even saying it to the Prime Minister of the country I live in, that I pay tax in, to say your approval rate is lower than Nigel Farage, that's disappointing. Whoever I support.
The thing is, if you make your mind up, as I have done, that we're going to do the difficult things first, then I think it's inevitable that people do feel they're difficult decisions. I mean, I understand that. But I do think in their heart of hearts, most people know if they've, as I say, turned around a business, an organisation, or even redoing your own house, you can give it a lick of paint quickly, and it probably doesn't make that much difference, or you can fix the foundations. I think people understand that if you run towards the difficult decisions, to really strip it out, turn it around, then we will all feel the benefit. I'm not surprised, quite frankly, that as we're doing the tough stuff, there are plenty of people who say, well, I'm impacted, I don't like it. But we've got to make the sort of big calls on the NHS and on schools that are really important for the here and now and for the future. So, in a sense, if we were in the business of giving away money and not impacting anyone, and you know, our ratings dropped, I'd be worried. But we're doing the tough stuff at the moment.
Is it harder than you thought it was going to be?
I always thought it'd be difficult. I knew it'd be difficult. It's one thing to be in opposition saying what you're going to do. It is always tougher in government doing it. But that's what I came into politics to do. I couldn't stand by and watch the NHS in the state that it was for a day longer. So to be in a position of saying we're going now to put the money in to make sure we can get our waiting list down. Now, for people watching this, there's over 7 million people on a waiting list who I think and hope will be really pleased that we're bringing those waiting lists down. They will get their operation more quickly because that impacts on... This is a question for all ages, of course, but very many pensioners are on waiting lists and they can't get around because they're waiting for their operation. I want to fix that. So, yeah, of course, it's tough. It's been tough for any government. This is not a party political issue. I've always respected previous prime ministers have had to make tough decisions. But the question is, what are your priorities? For me, the priorities are fixing the NHS.
Right.
And making sure working people are better.
And you've mentioned the NHS quite a few times, which is lovely to know, because that will, if you get that right, that will help
what a huge difference that will make.
For generations.
Yeah, for generations to come. Shoplifting. I mean, and we've just talked, we're looking at the things that really affect us day to day. Shoplifting levels are at the highest they have ever been.
They lock their doors on the high street.
It's terrible.
You have to knock to go into the shop.
It is awful. What can you do to try and get a grip of this?
Well, firstly, it's awful. I've spoken to many people working in shops about the sheer volume of it, the fear that they have of people coming in, quite often in groups, to shoplift. And what happened under the previous government is there was a sort of threshold of anything below £200 would not be prosecuted. Now, that became the norm, and we're changing that.
Right, OK.
Because we have to be clear, shoplifting is shoplifting, it's serious, and you don't get a sort of threshold that you can shoplift for free. So we're changing that, working with stores to make sure that we're cracking down on it, also doing some of the tracking. You may have seen that there are quite a lot of gangs working across different stores that we're able to now track. So do I accept it's a massive problem? Yes, hugely impactful on particularly staff, but also people in the shop who don't
also
like
customers. I watch someone nicking stuff, and what do you do?
You
can't interfere because you just don't know what they're going to do. And if I tackle them to the ground, what am I going to do? Hold them there until a policeman gets there? We need more police, surely, as well.
Yeah, we do need more police, and that's why we're recruiting...
Over everything, in fact.
Yeah, we're recruiting 13,000 new police and police support officers because we desperately need more. But you're quite right. And this is what I feel for staff in stores, because if your job is to prevent people stealing stuff, and yet it's very difficult to intervene, that is really, that's for staff, that's quite a difficult position. That isn't what they went into work to do that day. So we are working with them to crack down on this. We have to do it because it does impact staff, it impacts customers who don't like to see it. And of course, they're there queuing up or paying for their goods. And quite often in very difficult circumstances where, as we know, there's been a cost of living crisis the last few years. So they're doing the right thing and they're saying somebody else walk in and steal, and we are absolutely.
I think when you see it, it's a real shock to the system.
Well, it is because you don't know what to do. Actually, there's this vulnerability where you have no idea what to do.
And your instinct is to try and help or stop them, because actually, you stealing that is going to mean in a year's time I'm going to pay more for that.
Yeah, drive all the prices up.
So I think that's really important that you. I mean, you've come back on the show today to come, to do right on something you said you would do 18 months ago. The things you're saying now, can we think in a year?
Let's come back and deal with something like shoplifting or any other... I'm very happy to do that because where I say I'm going to do something, I'm very happy to come back, have another discussion when we've made some progress to tell you what we're doing.
That'd be great.
Well, I've got something from last time. You promised your kids a dog.
I was negotiating with
were you? Go on, tell me how those negotiations went.
I think you brought a dog in just to make it even harder for me. We've got a
I know, we're awful.
We, after a lot of negotiation, we got a Siberian kitten.
Did you?
White with blue eyes.
OK.
Which is beautiful.
What does Larry think about this new edition?
We haven't yet done the... Prince is the name of the kitten.
The little one.
So Prince and Larry haven't yet met. I'm worried that Larry will come off the better. Because the kitten is tiny.
Yeah,
very, very
And what's your plan for Christmas? What are you doing, family?
Family, together. And now, today, we can start talking about Christmas, because yesterday was my daughter's birthday.
Yes. What did you do?
She insisted that we go to one of these escape rooms where you get locked in and you have to... there are clues, and if you get the clues right, you can get out. So when
Did you go?
Well, when she first said it, I said, oh, that's great. Mummy and I'll have a nice cup of coffee and we'll see you when you get out. She said, no, you're in there with me.
Oh, wow.
So we did it yesterday.
Right, final. Do you do any of the cooking for Christmas, by the way?
Yeah.
Because we have an amazing chef over there, Phil Vickery.
Oh, are you offering?
Yeah.
It's to freeze your roast potatoes, Sir Keir.
I'm quite expensive, but I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
The other thing to say was, it's well known you're a family man. Do you cook? Do you help? Or do you sit and put your feet up?
No, I cook, and I really enjoy cooking. I find it relaxing, not always on Christmas Day relaxing, but most of the time. I really love cooking and do it as much as I can. I'll take your roast potato recipe off you, though.
OK.
There you go. Freeze them.
On the proviso, one day you come and cook with me here.
OK, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And what's your go-to dish?
Yeah, what is your signature?
Yeah, what's your signature? What's the Keir Starmer signature dish?
Well, it's the one the kids make me do over and over again. It's a pasta bake where you do layers of sort of handmade sauce, then different cheeses, and you layer it up with a sauce on top.
Oh.
Which I wouldn't say is necessarily the best dish
Is
ever.
it lasagna?
No.
Layers of pasta with a creamy sauce.
So the way it works on a Saturday, I like to cook on a Saturday.
Right.
So I say, I get the recipe book out and I go through, I'm going to do this, then the kids get involved.
Yeah.
And we negotiate, and we end up with a pasta bake very, very often, because that is what they will always eat. So I'm sort of teasing the edges of that, but that's the sort of fallback every time I can't persuade them.
Everyone's got
we're going to
pasta
try
fallback,
new. Although my tandoori salmon and tandoori corn is coming on very, very nicely.
Wow, quite global. Italian, tandoori.
The tandoori cheese.
Salmon.
Salmon.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, hang on, the food producer's saying, can you do Thursdays? She's got a vacancy on Thursday. Yeah, John Torrose. If you're watching, John, you're out. Literally gone. Oh, wow.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to coming back.
Oh, hello. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.